Tonight's episode includes a Manta Sleep affiliate link, which helps support the show at no extra cost to you. If you've ever tried sleeping with a regular sleep mask and found that light still gets in around the edges, or the mask presses against your eyes and just feels uncomfortable, Manta Sleep takes a different approach. Their masks are designed to give you a true blackout experience while keeping pressure off your eyes, so you can actually relax and forget you're wearing one. They also have several different versions depending on how you sleep, and one of the coolest is their Bluetooth audio sleep mask. It combines the blackout mask with built-in audio so you can listen to music, white noise, or even your favorite sleep stories without having earbuds in your ears all night. And for a podcast like this, that combination just makes sense. Block out the light, put on a story, and let everything else disappear for a while. If you're looking to upgrade your nighttime routine, check out Manta Sleep and find the mask that works best for you. You can find a direct link to them in the description of each episode. They also ship worldwide. Thanks for supporting the show. Now, let's get started. Welcome, dear listener, to Deep Sleep Stories. Settle yourself comfortably now, wherever you are, and allow the day to loosen its hold on you, little by little. Tonight's story will take you to a quiet bistro on a rainy corner where warm windows glow through the mist. Teacups steam softly, and every weary traveler finds exactly the comfort they need. Let your shoulders soften, let your hands rest. Let your breathing become slow and easy, like rain sliding gently down glass. Imagine that outside, the world has grown hushed beneath a silver veil of rain. The streets are calm and shining. Lamps bloom in soft golden circles along the pavement. Far away, a clock might be chiming, but the sound is gentle and blurred as though wrapped in wool. There is nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to solve, nothing that needs your attention now. Just breathe in slowly and breathe out. With every breath, you can let the room around you become quieter. The edges of thought may soften. The weight of the day may drift down like leaves settling at the bottom of a pond. And as you rest here warm and safe, a small street appears in the mind, tucked away in a sleepy old town where the rain knows how to fall politely. At the corner of this street, beneath a striped awning and a lantern shaped like a crescent moon, there is a little bistro with fogged windows and a painted wooden sign that reads, "The Sleepy Bistro." And now, as you grow more comfortable, the story can drift away from you, becoming something you simply observe, gently and easily, as though watching candlelight move across a wall. On the rainiest corner of a town that never hurried after sunset, there stood a bistro so small and warmly lit that many people passed it in daylight without noticing it at all. It rested between a bookbinder's shop and a narrow alley where ivy grew over brick in patient green ropes. Above its door hung the moon-shaped lantern, and whenever rain began to fall, the lantern seemed to glow a little brighter, casting a honey-colored light across the wet stones. No one quite remembered when the bistro had first opened. Some said it had always been there, serving soup to umbrella makers and tea to night watchmen. Others insisted It appeared only when the weather turned soft and gray, and that on clear days, the corner held nothing but an old wall and a sleeping cat. But no one argued about it too much, because the town was a peaceful place, and mysteries, when they were kind, were allowed to remain mysteries. The bistro was cared for by a woman named Elian, who moved as quietly as steam rising from a kettle. She wore linen sleeves rolled neatly to the elbow, a blue apron with deep pockets, and a silver spoon on a ribbon around her neck. Her hair was the color of chestnuts after rain, and her eyes held the patient warmth of someone who had listened to many stories and had never rushed the ending of any of them. Each evening, as clouds gathered and the first drops tapped on the awning, Elian would unlock the little door, though it never seemed entirely locked. She would step inside, breathe in the familiar scent of polished wood, dried lavender, and yesterday's bread, and then begin her gentle preparations. First came the lamps. There were 7 of them, though Elian never counted aloud. One hung above the counter, one glowed near the window, one sat on the shelf beside the jars of cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla sugar. The other stood in corners and alcoves, making pools of amber light where guests could sit quietly with their thoughts. Elian lit each wick with a match from a little brass box, and as the flames awakened, the bistro seemed to sigh, stretching into evening. Then came the kettle. It was round and coppery, with a spout curved like a swan's neck. When Elian filled it, the water made a soft, hollow song against the metal. She set it on the stove, and soon its warmth began to gather in the room. The kettle never shrieked. It hummed, a low, sleepy hum, as though it remembered lullabies from long ago. Then came the soup pot. Into it, Elian placed onions so sweet they made the air mellow, carrots cut into coins, little pale potatoes, a bundle of thyme tied with cotton thread, and a handful of pearled barley that clicked softly as rain against a roof. She stirred slowly, not because the soup required it, but because slow stirring made the bistro feel even more peaceful. Outside, the rain thickened. It combed through the gutters, tapped along window ledges, and whispered over the awning. The street reflected the lamps, and each stone seemed to hold a small golden moon. That evening, the first guest arrived just as the clock tower, hidden somewhere beyond the roofs, gave a drowsy note. It was old Mr. Bellwether, the umbrella mender, carrying 3 umbrellas under one arm and a folded newspaper beneath the other. His coat was damp at the shoulders, his spectacles misted at the edges, and his beard held a few bright beads of rain. "Evening, Elian," he said, though not loudly. "Evening, Mr. Bellwether," she replied. "Your table is waiting." And it was. Near the window, tucked just beside the radiator, stood a little round table with a green-shaded lamp and a cushioned chair that seemed to remember the exact shape of him. Mr. Bellwether placed his umbrellas in the blue ceramic stand by the door, took off his hat, and sat down with the relieved breath of a man who had finished all his errands and had no intention of beginning any new ones. Elian brought him a cup of barley tea with a spoonful of honey and a heel of bread brushed with butter. He opened his newspaper, but only halfway. Mostly he watched the rain. After him came a young seamstress named Leora, with a basket of ribbon scraps and a spool of silver thread. She was quiet, as she often was, after long days of measuring, pinning, and stitching in a workroom full of chatter. Elian greeted her with a nod, and Leora smiled with gratitude because a nod was exactly the sort of greeting she wanted. She took the table near the bookshelf, where a soft cushion waited and where a small vase held one white flower that somehow never wilted. Next came a traveling postman with boots, muddy from the lane beyond the mill. Then a student with ink on his fingers and a sleepy expression. Then a mother and her little child, both wrapped in a shawl as wide as a quilt. The child's cheeks were rosy from the cool, and her eyes were already drifting half-closed. The bistro did not become noisy. It became full, in the way a bowl becomes full of warm soup, quietly, generously, without spilling. Chairs creaked gently, cups clicked softly on saucers. Rain filled the spaces between words. Elian moved among the tables, bringing what each guest needed before they knew how to ask. To Mr. Bellwether, more tea. To Leora, a bowl of soup with extra thyme. To the postman, a plate of mushroom tart and a napkin warmed near the stove. To the student, a candle for his notes and a mug of spiced milk that made his eyelids grow heavier each time he sipped. Near the door, on a small braided rug, a gray cat slept in a perfectly round shape. No one knew where the cat came from. Elian called him Mallow because he was soft, pale, and seemed most content when curled beside warmth. Mallow opened one green eye whenever the bell above the door chimed, then closed it again. If the newcomer carried no fish, no cheese, and no urgent trouble. Outside, the rain continued. Beyond the bistro windows, the town grew blurred and beautiful. Shop signs became smudges of color. Chimneys breathed faintly into the low clouds. The fountain in the square caught rain in its stone basin and let it ripple outward in circles, one inside another, widening and fading. Now and then, someone passing by would pause beneath the awning and look into the bright room. The sight of the bistro through rain was a comforting one. It promised a chair, a bowl, a towel for wet hands, and the kind of quiet that did not feel empty. On this particular evening, just as Elian was taking a tray of chamomile custards from the oven, the bell over the door gave a sound unlike its usual chime. Usually it rang silver and small. This time it made a softer sound, almost like a yawn. Everyone looked up, but only a little. In the doorway stood a traveler. He was not unusual in any alarming way. He wore a dark coat, glossy with rain, a wool scarf, and a satchel slung across one shoulder. But there was something about him that made the room grow even gentler, as though all the lamps had lowered their flames to welcome him. His hair was wind-tousled, his face tired but kind, and he stood for a moment without stepping in, as if uncertain whether the warmth was meant for him. Elian set down the tray. "Come in," she said softly. "You have found the rainy corner." The traveler blinked, and some of the uncertainty left his face. He crossed the threshold, and the door closed behind him with a tender click. Mallow opened both eyes, stretched one paw, and then, after a solemn moment of consideration, rose from the rug and walked toward him. This was how everyone knew the traveler was especially tired. Mallow only rose for true weariness. The traveler removed his hat. Rainwater slipped from the brim and pattered onto the mat. "I didn't know this place was here," he said. "Most people don't," Elian answered, "until they need it." This seemed to satisfy him. Or perhaps he was too tired for questions. Elian led him to a table in the back corner where the wall curved inward slightly, and the lamplight rested like velvet. There was an old painting above the table showing a meadow beneath a twilight sky. If one looked at the painting long enough, the painted grass appeared to move in an invisible breeze. The traveler sat down with a slow breath. "What may I bring you?" Elian asked. He looked at the menu, which was written in looping ink on thick cream paper. There were only a few choices, yet somehow they seemed to contain every comfort in the world. Rain broth with garden herbs, buttered rolls, moonberry jam, pear tea, rosemary potatoes, cinnamon rice pudding, and a little cake called hush cake, served warm. "I don't know," said the traveler. Elian smiled, not because his answer was funny, but because it was honest. "Then I'll bring what the evening suggests." She returned to the kitchen where copper pans gleamed on hooks and little bundles of dried herbs hung from the rafters. The kitchen was no larger than a pantry in most inns, yet it had room for everything needed: a flour-dusted table, a clay jar of wooden spoons, a blue bowl for pears, and a window that looked onto the ivy alley. Rain ticked against the glass, each drop catching for a moment before slipping down into darkness. Elian ladled soup into a deep bowl. She chose a roll from the warming drawer and wrapped it in a linen cloth. She poured tea into a cup the color of fog and added a single drop of something from a tiny bottle kept high on a shelf. It was not medicine exactly. It was more like the memory of a meadow after rain, the hush between two lullaby notes, the comfort of returning home with no need to explain where one had been. When she placed the meal before the traveler, the steam rose slowly, curling around his face. He thanked her. The first spoonful seemed to quiet something in him. His shoulders lowered. The lines around his eyes softened. Mallow stepped beneath the table and settled on the traveler's boots, as if holding him gently in place. Across the room, Mr. Bellwether turned a page of his newspaper and did not read it. Leora threaded her needle and let it rest. The little child had fallen asleep, with her head against her mother's arm. The postman leaned back in his chair, listening to the rain as though it were telling him where all the roads went after dark. For a long while, nothing happened except the sort of things that happen in warm rooms on rainy nights. Soup was eaten, tea was poured, the windows grew more deeply fogged. A log shifted in the stove with a soft, settling sound, and the traveler, spoon by spoon, seemed to come back from somewhere far away. After he had finished his bowl, Elian brought him pear tea. It smelled of orchards, wet leaves, and something faintly like starlight. He wrapped both hands around the cup. "I was looking for an address," he said after a while. Elian was polishing a spoon nearby. "Were you?" "Yes. I have walked all afternoon, but the ink ran in the rain." He opened his satchel and took out a folded paper, softened and blurred by water. "I can't read the street anymore." Elian looked at the paper without touching it. "That happens," she said. "Rain changes many things." The traveler gave a small, tired laugh. "I suppose it does." "What were you hoping to find?" He thought about this. The bistro grew still around his thinking, not expectant, only patient. "A room," he said at last, "a place to rest before going on." Elian nodded. "Then perhaps you found the right corner." He looked around at the glowing lamps, the sleeping child, the old umbrella mender, the seamstress whose silver thread now caught the light like a line of moonlight, the gray cat dozing on his feet. "Perhaps," he said. The evening went on. At the counter, Elian cut hush cake into slices. The cake was plain to look at, golden and soft, with a crust dusted in sugar so fine it looked like frost. But when she set slices before the guests, each person tasted something slightly different. Mr. Bellwether tasted the spice cake his sister had once made on winter Sundays. Leora tasted almond and apricot, though neither was in the recipe. The student tasted warm vanilla and suddenly remembered the comfort of being very small and very safe, though he did not know why. The traveler tasted apples baked in embers, and for a moment he saw, not with his eyes but somewhere quieter, a cottage he had known long ago. There had been a sloping roof, a path of flat stones, and a window where someone had left a candle burning for him. He lowered his fork. Elian noticed, but said nothing. The rain softened then, no longer pattering, but whispering. It slid down the window in smooth threads. Somewhere in the wall, the pipes hummed. Somewhere above the ceiling, perhaps in an apartment or perhaps in the rafters of the bistro itself, a sleepy music box began to play. The melody was simple and slow, turning over the same few notes, as gently as a hand smoothing a blanket. The little child stirred and opened her eyes halfway. "Is it morning?" she murmured. "Not yet," her mother whispered. And "Good," said the child, and fell asleep again. A quiet smile passed through the room like a warm breeze. Later, when the dishes had been cleared and the lamps had burned a little lower, Elian brought out a stack of small blue cards. Each card had a silver border and a blank space in the center. "It is a good night for writing down burdens," she said. The regular guests knew this custom. The traveler did not, but no one made him feel strange for not knowing. Elian placed a card and a pencil on each table. Then she returned to the counter and began drying cups. There was no instruction beyond that. No one had to write, no one had to share. But on certain rainy evenings, the bistro offered this quiet practice. person could write a worry, a regret, a question, or even a single word that had become too heavy to carry, then if they wished, they could place the card in the little brass box beside the stove. The box had no lock. It needed none. Mr. Bellwether wrote something slowly, his pencil held in a careful hand. Leora wrote only one word, then folded her card in half. The student chewed the end of his pencil before writing a sentence so small it was almost a line. The postman stared at his card for a long time, then drew a road curving into hills. The traveler looked down at the blank space. He did not know what to write, so he listened. The rain listened with him. The bistro seemed to breathe. At last he wrote, "I am tired of always arriving and never resting." He looked at the words for a long time. They did not accuse him. They simply sat there, true and quiet. When he was ready, he folded the card once, then again, and carried it to the brass box. The others had already placed their cards inside. Elian opened the stove door, and warm light spilled across the floor. But she did not burn the cards. Instead, she set the brass box on the stove's wide iron shelf, where it warmed slowly. From within the box came a faint sound, like ice melting in spring. The traveler glanced at Elian. "Do they disappear?" he asked. "No," she said, "but they grow lighter." And whether from the tea, the hush cake, the rain, or the simple kindness of being believed by a room full of strangers, the traveler felt that something in him did grow lighter, not gone, not solved, only easier to hold. This was the way of the bistro. It did not repair lives in grand gestures. It did not offer maps with every road marked clearly. It gave warmth and silence and soup and space enough for the heart to unclench. After the cards had warmed, Elian returned them to their writers. Each person tucked theirs away or placed it in a pocket. The traveler unfolded his and saw that his words remained. But the ink had turned pale blue, like rainwater reflecting sky. He slipped the card into his satchel. By then, the hour had grown late. The mother wrapped her child in the shawl and carried her toward the door. Elian handed her a paper parcel of rolls for morning. The postman rose and stretched, declaring in a whisper that his boots had forgiven him. Leora gathered her ribbons, and Mr. Bellwether collected his umbrellas, though the oldest one, a patched brown thing, seemed reluctant to leave the stand. One by one, the guests stepped back into the rainy street. Yet no one looked unhappy to go. The rain was gentler now, and the lamps outside shone warmly through it. The bistro had given each of them enough comfort to carry home. The traveler remained. Mallow remained on his boots. Elian wiped the counter, stacked the saucers, and set the chairs slightly askew so their wooden legs could rest after holding up the day. She did these things in no hurry. The traveler watched the calm precision of her movements and felt his own thoughts slow to match them. At last he said, "Is there an inn nearby?" "There is," said Elian, "but tonight The upstairs room is open. I didn't know there was an upstairs. Most people don't, she said again, smiling. She took a lamp and led him through a narrow door beside the bookshelf. Behind it was a staircase, carpeted in faded blue. The stairs turned once, then again, and each step gave the smallest sigh underfoot. The walls were papered with a pattern of pale leaves. Somewhere, hidden from sight, rainwater traveled through gutters with a soft, steady murmur. At the top was a little landing and one door. Elian opened it. The room beyond was simple and perfect. A bed stood beneath a slanted ceiling, its quilt folded back invitingly. A small writing desk rested beside a round window. On the sill sat a white ceramic dish, holding 3 smooth stones and a sprig of lavender. The wallpaper was cream-colored. The rug was thick. The air smelled faintly of cedar and clean linen. The traveler stepped inside. Outside the round window, the rainy town had become a watercolor of rooftops and lamps. Drops traced slow paths down the glass. The moon, hidden behind clouds, lent the sky a soft brightness. Not enough to wake anything, only enough to make the rain visible as it fell. "You may rest here," Elian said. "In the morning you can decide where to go." The traveler turned. "What if I still don't know?" "Then have breakfast first." This seemed like the wisest answer anyone had ever given him. Elian placed the lamp on the desk. Mallow, who had followed them without a sound, hopped onto the quilt, circled twice, and settled near the foot of the bed. "He rarely approves so quickly," Elian said. The traveler smiled. "Good night," she said. "Good night." She closed the door softly. The traveler stood for a moment in the quiet room. He removed his damp coat and hung it on the back of a chair. He took off his boots, and his feet felt grateful for the rug. From his satchel, he withdrew the pale blue card and placed it on the desk beside the lamp. "I am tired of always arriving and never resting." The words were still true, but now beneath them, in ink so faint he almost missed it, another line had appeared. "Then rest." The traveler read it once, then again. He did not wonder how it had happened. Not tonight. Some mysteries did not ask to be studied. Some only asked to be received. He washed his face in the little basin, changed into the soft nightshirt folded at the end of the bed, and pulled back the quilt. The sheets were cool at first, then warm. Mallow made a small sound of approval and tucked his nose beneath his tail. The traveler lay down. The room gathered around him. Rain whispered at the window. The bistro below creaked in its sleep. The traveler thought of all the roads he had walked, the signs blurred by weather, the addresses that had washed away. He thought of the warm soup, the silver thread, the old umbrella mender, the child who had been pleased it was not morning. He thought of Elian's quiet voice saying that some burdens did not disappear, but they grew lighter. His breathing deepened. The rain became softer. The town became softer. And somewhere between one breath and the next, the traveler stopped trying to arrive anywhere at all. He simply rested. Below, in the bistro, Elian finished her closing. She rinsed the last cup and set it upside down on a towel. She swept crumbs from beneath the tables. She fed the stove one final log, not to make the room hot, only to keep a little heart of warmth glowing until morning. Then she walked to the window and drew a small circle in the fogged glass with her fingertip. Outside, the rainy corner shone quietly. A fox trotted past with careful paws, its fur darkened by rain. The moon lantern swayed under the awning. In the alley, ivy leaves glittered. Far beyond the roofs, dawn was still many hours away, folded safely behind the clouds. Elian smiled at the sleeping street. Then she turned down the lamps one by one. The bistro did not go dark. It settled into a dim golden hush, the kind of light that belongs to embers, dreams, and rooms where someone is sleeping well. Upstairs, the traveler slept beneath the quilt, one hand open on the blanket, his face peaceful. Mallow slept at his feet. The blue card on the desk lay still in the lamplight, its message quiet and kind. Then rest. The rain kept falling slower now, as though it too was growing sleepy. It washed the roofs. It polished the cobbles. It tucked the town beneath its soft gray blanket and asked nothing in return. And in the little room above the bistro, the traveler dreamed of a meadow beneath twilight, where every path curved gently homeward and every window held a candle. The dream asked nothing of him. It simply opened. He walked without hurry through grass silvered by rain. There were no heavy bags on his shoulders, no blurred address in his hand, no distant bell urging him onward. Only the meadow, the cool, sweet air, and a cottage with a sloping roof waiting beneath the quiet sky. When he reached the door, it opened by itself. Inside was warmth. Inside was rest. And the rain, far away and close by, continued its gentle song. So now the story grows quieter. The bistro is still. The street is still. The traveler is sleeping, and the little gray cat is sleeping, and the rain is softer than a whisper against the glass. There is nothing more to carry tonight. Nothing more to finish. The lamps are low and the quilt is warm. The whole town is breathing slowly beneath the rain. Let your own breath follow that peaceful rhythm. In and out. Softly in. Softly out. The rainy corner fades into mist. The bistro's golden window glows once more, then gently dims like a star behind a cloud. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.